On the night of our wedding, my stepsister offered herself to share the bed, wanting to become my husband's concubine. I wasn't the least bit flustered, but my carefully chosen husband was. He kicked her away with one foot. Even a dog wouldn't want you. Then, seeing me, he started whimpering, "Wife, I'm scared." Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I can probably guess what Su Ying will do, because in my previous life, she also intercepted Xiao Yun, who was on his way to the bridal chamber on my wedding night, wearing a sheer red dress with tearful eyes, offering herself to him. "I know this is wrong, but I admire your highness. I'm willing to be a concubine as long as I can stay by your side." It wasn't that she loved Xiao Yun so much, she just enjoyed taking what was mine. In his previous life, Xiao Yun couldn't resist the temptation and ended up entangled with her on their wedding night. Later, he even wanted to divorce me and make her his principal wife. Now that I've been reborn, even though I married someone else to avoid her, she's still using the same old tricks, trying to climb into Xiao Shun's bed. When she stopped Xiao Shun, I was hiding behind a rockery not far away, watching her take a step closer to Xiao Shun, her eyes brimming with tears as she said to him, "I don't seek status even as a concubine, even if only to serve you as a maid, I'm willing." She was indeed beautiful. If judged solely by appearance, she was undoubtedly the most striking among our Su family. Especially with this pitiful demeanor of hers, there was hardly a normal man who wouldn't soften at the sight. But how could Xiao Shun possibly be a normal man? He's the man I've handpicked from thousands, the least likely in all of Great Liang to fall for a beauty trap. Xiao Shun, the sixth son of the current emperor, and to this day, the only prince to have been granted the title of imperial prince. Rumors swirl that he's temperamental, cruel by nature, with a face like a demon and utterly indifferent to women. He even personally crippled a young palace maid who had climbed into his bed. Admittedly, rumors circulating among the people aren't very reliable. Yet not a single minister in the entire court dared to marry their daughter to him. But I'm different, I was the only one who schemed to marry him, not for any other reason. But because of that one phrase about beating palace maids into cripples, when Su Ying once again declared her feelings to Xiao Shun, I was hiding behind the rockery, nibbling on shelled melon seeds while lowering my voice to whisper to Tsuaping behind me, "Tell me, between Su Ying and Xiao Shun, who do you think will win in the end?" I was purely there for the spectacle. Such free entertainment is rare indeed. Tsuaping didn't answer. Just silently stuffed another handful of shelled melon seeds into my hand and muttered under her breath, "He's still your husband after all. You're really something." What do you mean really something? If Su Ying gets rejected by Xiao Shun, everyone would naturally be delighted. If she succeeds, I'll just sacrifice myself and play the villain who breaks up the happy couple for once. Here I am, standing right here. Do you think I'd be as foolish as in my past life? Stupid enough to still plead for Su Ying to be made a concubine the day after, all for the sake of the Su family's reputation? Of course, I couldn't possibly be that foolish, and I trust my own judgment, so I lowered my voice again and said, "Let's bet 2 taels of silver. I wager Xiao Shun won't take the bait." Tsuaping was clearly lacking in romantic sensibility, unwilling to bet with me, but that didn't stop me from making a wager with myself. I resolved that if Su Ying succeeded as she had in my past life, I would immediately request permission for divorce without another word, relinquish my title as principal consort to her, and retire to live out my remaining years in peace. If Xiao Shun resisted temptation, then I would reluctantly settle the grievances I'd endured in my previous life, one by one. With this thought in mind, I turned my gaze with great interest toward the 2 figures by the lakeside. I must admit, the rumors were truly unfair. Xiao Shun was genuinely handsome. Perhaps inheriting his mother's Western region heritage, his features were far more striking than those of the men from my Great Liang. Clad in a bright red wedding robe, he looked like a celestial being descended to earth under the hazy moonlight. From a distance, I couldn't make out his expression clearly. All I could see was his eyes fixed intently on Su Ying. Meanwhile, Su Ying wore a joyful expression, murmuring affectionate words of confession as she slowly moved closer to him. The distance between them grew shorter and shorter, until they were nearly pressed together. The maid Tsuaping behind me couldn't help whispering a reminder, "Miss, you're about to lose," yet I remained completely unruffled, turning back to gesture at her with my hand. "What's the rush? There's still some distance left, they haven't even kissed yet." The moment my words fell, a sudden plop sound was heard. Then came an earth-shattering, soul-shaking scream of Ghost. Watching Xiao Shun jumping around the backyard and Su Ying struggling in the lake, I froze for a moment before asking Tsuaping, What did I miss? Suaping replied expressionlessly, oh, you missed the wonderful scene of the young master kicking the second young lady into the lake. Xiao Shun's shouts were so loud that they quickly drew a crowd of servants. With so many people around, my tiny space couldn't possibly hide anyone. Even Xiao Shun spotted me and came running over in a flash. He clung to my neck like I was his savior and immediately started wailing. Hurry, hurry, there's a ghost, a female ghost that looks just like you. Me, something feels off, not quite how I imagined it would be. I was being strangled to the point of gasping for air. After patting his hand repeatedly, he finally understood my intention and released my neck. Yet even after letting go, he still clung to my arm, too afraid to loosen his grip. He must have been genuinely terrified, his lips pale with fear, as he pitifully said, I'm scared, me. He felt even more different from the Xiao Shun I had imagined. That pitiful look was exactly the same as the big yellow dog I had as a child, who would hide by my feet whenever it got startled. Unable to resist, I reached out my hand to pat his head reassuringly. Don't worry, it's not a ghost, it's my half-sister. It was only when Suaping leaned over to whisper a reminder that I finally snapped out of it. I had come to my senses, but Xiao Shun still hadn't. He was completely absorbed in what I had just said, then asked in return, your stepsister. As he spoke, his eyes widened slightly, his handsome brows knitting tightly together. I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. If not for those rumors, he would probably be the very image of the ideal husband that noble ladies in the capital dream of. Wouldn't he? Alas, he had to open his mouth. Sure enough, no sooner had I finished my sigh than he lived up to my expectations by leaping out and pointing at Su Ying in the lake, launching into a tirade. Damn you, playing ghost in the middle of the night, are you tired of living? After cursing, he turned to me with a pitiful expression and asked, is there something wrong with her brain? Watching the servants of the prince's mansion who seemed completely accustomed to this, I finally understood where all those rumors about Xiao Shun came from. In the short time I stood there in shock, the servants had already fished Su Ying out of the water. The mansion's steward even kindly had someone give her a blanket. Xiao Shun must have been furious, still shouting about killing Su Ying. It was the steward who stepped forward to advise, Your Highness, today is your joyous wedding day with the princess. It's inauspicious to shed blood. These words seemed to cast a paralysis spell on Xiao Shun. He even had half a sentence stuck in his throat as he turned his head slowly to ask me in a daze. Really? I nodded, probably. His spirit deflated in an instant, his expression both aggrieved and frustrated. After a long while, he finally frowned impatiently and said, Hurry up and take this damn thing away. Damn thing. I turned my gaze to Su Ying, who was wrapped in a blanket. Well, that's quite an accurate description. It's truly distressing. Naturally, I didn't have anyone escort Su Ying. Instead, I sent someone to summon her family from the Su residence. In the dead of night, an unmarried woman in disheveled clothing being sent back to the Su residence in the Yu Manor's carriage. Who knows what rumors might spread by tomorrow? Who knows? They might even twist black into white, and it might just fulfill Su Ying's wish. Su Chengyun and Lady Qi arrived while Su Ying was still crying. Only the location of her weeping had shifted from the backyard to the front hall. Like Su Ying, Lady Qi hadn't even stepped through the door when she spotted Su Ying kneeling on the ground from afar, and immediately began dabbing at her tears. Su Chengyun, however, remained composed. After casting a glance at Su Ying, he didn't question her, but instead frowned and turned to me. What's going on here? Before I could speak, Su Ying was the first to break the silence. She tugged at Su Chengyun's sleeve and said in a soft, pleading voice, It's all my fault, don't blame the prince. Father, please don't ask anymore. Can we just go home? After speaking, she cast a teary-eyed glance at Xiao Shun before quickly averting her gaze. She looked exactly like a pitiful woman who had been defiled yet still had to consider the other party's dignity. Seeing her like this, how could Madame Qi possibly agree? She was clever enough not to dare question Xiao Shun, instead turning her tearful eyes to accuse me. Su Jiang, as Ying's elder sister, how could you allow your own husband to humiliate your younger sister? Xiao Shun's fiery temper couldn't be contained for even a moment. He slammed the table hard and launched into another round of furious cursing. I patted his shoulder repeatedly, finally managing to calm him down after much effort. Su Ying probably didn't know I'd witnessed the entire scene from behind the rockery, as she continued acting along with Madame Qi's narrative. Mother, please don't say any more, it's all my fault, to create misunderstandings. She had always favored this method of feigning weakness while leaving sentences half-finished, making others guess. Admittedly, this approach was indeed effective. In my past life, I had suffered plenty of hidden losses because of it. But some lessons only need to be learned once. Looking at the family of 3 waiting for an explanation before me, I couldn't help but slowly curl my lips into a smile and adjust to a more comfortable sitting position. Oh, you're saying it was my lord who bullied her? Well then, shall I have my lord take her in and let her become a concubine in the Yu manor? The moment the words concubine left my lips, Madame Chi's expression immediately changed. Her eyes widened as if she couldn't believe what she'd heard. Pointing at me, she stammered you for a long while, unable to form a complete sentence. Even Su Chengyun's expression didn't look any better, because the word concubine had always been a thorn in their throats. Back then, Su Chengyun abandoned Lady Chi to marry my mother for the sake of his official career, yet after his career prospered, he couldn't forget Lady Chi. Later, while my mother was pregnant with me, he secretly impregnated Lady Chi, taking advantage of my maternal grandfather's family being away at war with no one to support my mother. He insisted on making Lady Chi his equal wife. My mother was no pushover. Using the Su family's reputation as leverage, she successfully dissuaded Su Chengyun from taking a second wife, but since Chi Shi was already pregnant with Su Chengyun's child, she was ultimately taken into the household as a concubine. Perhaps because of this, Su Chengyun doted excessively on Chi Shi and her daughter. Despite being the legitimate daughter, my food, clothing, and daily provisions were inferior to Su Ying's in every way. Even so, Su Ying still believed that my mother and I had taken what rightfully belonged to her and her mother. Because of this, for so many years, she has always tried to outdo me in every way. I'm a lazy person. In my past life, though I knew all this, I couldn't be bothered to argue with her. In fact, the day after Su Ying climbed into Xiao Yun's bed, to avoid her causing trouble for me, I even suggested that Xiao Yun make her his concubine, yet in her struggle for favor, she still bribed the servants to mix contraceptive medicine into my food every day, and when Su Chengyun found out, all he said was a single dismissive remark: "What does it matter if you have no children? Your younger sister can bear them. You're the principal wife, won't her child still have to call you mother? Just treat that child as your own." To think they share the same father, yet he could be so biased, it truly is laughable. Sure enough, this time he once again chose to defend Su Ying without hesitation, pointing at my nose and cursing, "She's your own sister, how could you make her a concubine? Our Su family has treated you well, how did we raise such an ungrateful wretch like you?" I raised an eyebrow at him. "Your Su family, if you hadn't mentioned it, I would have thought my surname was Song." He seemed to realize he had spoken wrongly, his expression changing slightly, yet he still stubbornly insisted, "All these years, I've treated you well, haven't I? Treated me well." I laughed in sheer anger, cutting him off. "Right after my mother passed away, you drove young me out of the main house to live in the woodshed. Is that treating me well? In the dead of winter, even the servants had charcoal for warmth, while I had only thin clothes to fend off the cold. Is that treating me well? Did you treat me well when you took the money my maternal grandfather sent me from afar without even asking, using it to buy fine clothes and jewelry for your concubine and beloved daughter? You claim you treated me well, but tell me, did you even glance at me when I was gravely ill at 10 years old, on the verge of death, and today, for my wedding dowry, did you contribute even a single item? Should I also thank you for sparing me a bite to eat, for not letting me starve to death?" Watching the 3 of them grow increasingly pale, I finally felt a bit of relief and couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. "Oh, by the way, becoming my prince's concubine wasn't my idea, it was your precious daughter behind you who personally offered herself when recommending her pillow service." Su Ying probably didn't expect that I had actually overheard her words. As soon as I spoke, she instinctively tried to refute. I didn't. But before her denial could fully leave her lips, Xiao Shun beside me immediately chimed in agreement. "Who dresses like a female ghost in the dead of night and still wants to be my concubine? Pa, even dogs wouldn't want you." His voice wasn't loud, but everyone present heard it clearly. Su Chengyun and Lady Chi's expressions were a sight to behold, their faces alternating between red and white. Su Ying was utterly stunned, her entire body freezing in place. It seemed only now that she realized Xiao Shun was different from those men who flattered and coveted her. He wasn't someone who would come running at her beck and call with just a few coquettish smiles and a crook of her finger. Judging by her expression, Su Chengyun and the Chi family probably understood what was really going on. The same people who had been so aggressive and ready to hold me accountable moments ago had now become as silent as sealed gourds. Lady Chi and Su Ying were both weeping, one with audible sobs and the other with silent tears. Only Su Chengyun remained silent for a moment before suddenly softening his tone and saying to Xiao Shun, "Although my daughter acted rashly today, she fell into the water in your residence and was seen in such a state. Surely, your highness must give some explanation for this." Oh ho, so they're forcing Xiao Shun to take responsibility now, in such a situation. As long as Xiao Shun firmly denied any involvement, Su Chengyun, for the sake of Su Ying's reputation, wouldn't dare to publicize the matter widely and would have no way to hold Xiao Shun accountable. But obviously, Xiao Shun wasn't normal. With a frown at Su Chengyun, he suddenly stood up and strode over. Before anyone could react, he swished open Su Chengyun's clothes. His movements were swift and decisive. By the time people came to their senses, half of Su Chengyun's pale chest was already exposed. Screams erupted throughout the room. With only Xiao Shun shrugging innocently, "I've also seen you, how about I take you as my concubine too?" Su Chengyun was nearly driven mad with rage, pointing at Xiao Shun's nose, wanting to curse but not daring to. He could only point at me, gnashing his teeth as he threatened me not to spread today's events and ruin Su Ying's reputation. Then she quickly led Lady Qi and Su Ying away. Su Chengyun had probably never suffered such a loss in all his years. Just thinking about his expression of utter exasperation put me in an excellent mood. Unable to resist, I patted Xiao Shun's head again and praised, "Well done." He had just torn Su Chengyun's clothes without batting an eye, yet now he seemed to finally realize what he'd done, his face gradually flushing red. His eyes glistened as he stared at me, his face full of anticipation as he asked, "Did I really do well?" That expression practically had "praise me more" written all over it. A faint itch stirred in my heart, and for some inexplicable reason, I found this man, who stood a full head taller than me, rather endearing. Then, unable to help myself, I nodded, "Millimeter, well done." Hearing this, his eyes suddenly lit up. Who knows how his thoughts jumped, but he suddenly stepped forward and grabbed my hand, holding it in his. "Don't worry, if they don't treat you well, I will. From now on, just consider this place your home. If you want anything, just tell me." Looking at his solemn and earnest expression that showed no hint of jest, my heart inexplicably skipped a beat. Indeed, rumors had deceived me. Xiao Shun proved true to his word. Within less than half a month, he had filled my room with piles of items, gold and silver jewelry, silks and satins. Anything that caught his eye was crammed into my quarters. However, his taste in appreciating these things was truly questionable. Those gaudy golden accessories were both flashy and impractical. As for those fabrics in garish reds and greens, just a glance at them was enough to make one cringe with embarrassment. It took me quite some persuasion to finally dissuade him from making those purchases. I don't know if it's just my imagination, but ever since the wedding day, Xiao Shun has been acting unusually warm towards me. It's as if we've known each other for a long time, yet I'm absolutely certain that in both this life and the previous one, apart from a few brief encounters at banquets, we've hardly had any interaction at all. I can't help but wonder, could it be that by being reborn, I've somehow lost some memories? Before I could figure anything out, rumors began circulating in the streets. Naturally, what spread wasn't about Su Ying offering herself, but about my arrogance and domineering behavior, how I severed ties with my father Su Chengyun on my wedding day. Su Ying had many close friends from noble families, daughters of her father's colleagues in court, as expected. Within days, I received a verbal reprimand from the palace and was placed under house arrest. "I'm fine. I don't feel anything." On the contrary, Xiao Shun seemed to be furious, running back and forth to the palace several times. I heard that he made a scene in front of the emperor, who was so annoyed by his antics that he had no choice but to lift my house arrest. I was quite surprised and finally couldn't help but stop him at the dinner table to ask, "Have we met before?" This question wasn't hard to answer, yet he froze as if struck by lightning, suddenly rooted to the spot. Even the piece of meat between his chopsticks fell back into the bowl. Wide-eyed, he stared at me without answering, instead countering, "You've forgotten me." What did I forget? Hearing my question, his chopsticks paused again, a fleeting emotion flashing through his eyes. After a long moment, he finally put down his bowl with a muffled voice, "If you've forgotten, then forget it." It wasn't anything important anyway. Though he said that, he still left without eating, abandoning me alone at the table. I pondered over it repeatedly, yet couldn't figure out what he meant by unimportant matters. Before I could find the answer, Tsuaping brought me some good news first. She handed me the letter and whispered in my ear. That person said, "Approved." After reading it, I burned the letter, then slowly curved my lips into a smile. "Then let's start by giving him a grand gift." On the second day after my house arrest was lifted, new rumors quietly began circulating in the streets. The rumors claimed that Su Chengyun and Lady Qi had once been deeply in love, but the Song family's young mistress had cruelly torn the loving couple apart. They also said the reason I severed ties with the Su family was because I'd never held any status there, unlike Su Ying, who was the true pearl cherished in Su Chengyun's palm. These remarks favoring the concubine born over the legitimate heir naturally provoked dissatisfaction among some ministers, but even honest officials find it hard to judge domestic disputes, and though the matter had reached the emperor's presence, His Majesty merely issued a few reprimands. On the 5th day of rampant rumors, I had Suaping arrange a chance encounter for Prince Hui Xiaoyun and Su Ying. As expected, within just a few days, Xiaoyun sent matchmakers with the full traditional betrothal gifts to the Su family to seek marriage. Suaping rarely showed any dissatisfaction with my actions, but she spread rumors to slander you. Why would you still arrange such a good marriage for her? As she asked this, I was lying on a rocking chair, eyes closed, enjoying the cool breeze. Who said it must necessarily be a good marriage? In my previous life, Xiaoyun spent his wedding night with Su Ying. After learning that Su Chengyun truly doted on Su Ying, Xiaoyun, in order to win Su Chengyun's favor, tacitly allowed her to use those underhanded tricks against me. Later, he even used me to orchestrate the extermination of my maternal clan, the Song family, before ending my life with a cup of poisoned wine. Even now, I still vividly remember the moment before my death in that past life, when he forced the poisoned wine down my throat. He said, "Su Jiang, do you think I'm unaware of Su Ying's actions? If not for your remaining usefulness, a woman as utterly devoid of charm as you would never have been worthy of my hand in marriage. TSK, nothing cuts deeper than killing the spirit along with the body, though to this day, I still haven't figured out why I was granted this second chance at life. But it didn't stop me from settling the grudges from my past life. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but sigh. Two grasshoppers tied to the same string, one blast takes out the whole bunch. How convenient." Xiaoyun and Su Ying's grand wedding came even earlier than I expected, almost the same time as when I had married him in my previous life. Not long after their wedding, a major incident occurred at court. Nanyu County suffered severe flooding due to continuous heavy rains, drowning hundreds of people. This was the first disaster of such magnitude since the emperor ascended the throne. In the previous life, after the flood occurred, several ministers led by Su Chengyun petitioned the emperor to send Prince Yong, Xiaoju, to lead the disaster relief efforts. Prince Yong never returned from that journey. Looking back now, among all the imperial princes, Xiaoju's abilities stood out the most. Xiaoyun coveted the crown prince's position, and Xiaoju's death likely bore his fingerprints. Yet in this lifetime, before news of the Nan County disaster even reached the capital, Xiaoju had already fallen ill. He lingered on his sickbed for dozens of days, and Xiao Shun, being close to him, even brought medicinal herbs to visit him once or twice. Indeed, this time in the imperial court, there were no more voices suggesting the princes should handle disaster relief. Upon hearing the advice, the emperor appointed Su Chengyun as an imperial envoy to go to Nanyu County for disaster relief. By the time he arrived, although the floodwaters had receded, a plague had begun to spread rampantly, and frequent riots were breaking out as troublemakers seized the opportunity. These messages occasionally reached the capital, making the atmosphere in the city increasingly tense, before the good news of Su Chengyun's disaster relief efforts could return. The Empress's birthday arrived in the blink of an eye. The Empress was a devout Buddhist, and with the disaster still unresolved, she had no intention of holding a birthday banquet. But for reasons unknown, Su Ying actually proposed that during this birthday banquet, court officials should donate silver to raise funds, which would then be sent to Nanyu County for disaster relief. That's a good proposal. As expected, the emperor and empress agreed to it. On the day of the birthday banquet, the men's banquet was held in the Cheongji Hall, while the women's banquet was set up in the Imperial Garden, separated from Xiao Shun. I had just arrived at the Imperial Garden when I saw Su Ying, whom I hadn't seen for 2 months. She was all smiles, chatting and laughing merrily with a group of noble ladies. The noble ladies noticed me and began whispering among themselves, "Is that her, the one who severed ties with your father on her wedding day? Who knows what madness possessed Prince Yu to take a fancy to such an unfilial woman?" Su Ying naturally noticed me too. After saying something to that group of noble ladies, she rose gracefully and came toward me. She warmly reached out to take my hand, sweetly calling me "sister." Our relationship was certainly not close enough for such familiarity. With the lesson from my past life still fresh in mind, I knew exactly what schemes she was harboring. So I quietly curled the corner of my lips at her. "Well, if it isn't the Princess of Huai, What a coincidence. I deliberately hid my hand in my sleeve, so she couldn't hold it and had to grasp my wrist instead. Sister, why so distant? We're family, are we truly going to let this come between us? Though she spoke affectionate words, from an angle invisible to others, her expression subtly shifted, revealing a hint of malice. She even deliberately lowered her voice to a whisper, taunting me where no one else could hear. Su Jiang, don't think you can live comfortably just because you've left the Su family. Everything that's yours, I'll take it all. With that, she suddenly yanked my arm and let out a startled cry as she fell backward. Su Ying had a miscarriage, and in everyone's eyes, it was I who pushed her. In my past life, Su Ying's move caught me off guard, and I suffered greatly for it. This time, as I watched her employ the same trick again, and saw those noble ladies, just like in my past life, all testify against me before the Empress, I found it quite amusing. Thinking so, I actually burst out laughing. Mother, look at her. Even at this point, she still shows no remorse. The speaker was the eldest princess, Xiao Waning. In my previous life, when Su Ying targeted me, she often chimed in to support her, but the Empress didn't immediately take her side. Instead, she looked up at me and asked, "Is what they're saying true?" I bowed respectfully before responding. Your Majesty, all matters require evidence. Everyone claims I pushed the Princess of Huai, but can they produce any proof? Xiao Waning and the noble ladies present had probably never encountered someone as shameless as me before. They all righteously indignant cried out, I saw it too. Even Su Ying, who had just miscarried, endured her pain and was helped out from the rear hall, her tearful eyes accusing me. Sister, after all our sisterly bond, why would you harm my child? Su Ying clutched her abdomen, her face a picture of tearful distress, so pitiful it tugged at the heartstrings. She can act, and so can I. I slightly furrowed my brows, let out a soft sigh, and then said faintly, as I've said, everything requires evidence. If you claim I pushed you, you must provide proof that I did. Su Ying's eyes were red and swollen. Sister, what kind of talk is this? By your logic, would I harm the royal heir in my womb? Me, who can say for sure? My slightly arrogant remark clearly made her blood boil. Her body swayed twice, almost losing her balance. After barely being supported by others, she stubbornly knelt on the ground, pleading with the Empress through tears. Mother Empress, I beseech you to seek justice for my unborn child. The Queen, having maintained her position securely for decades, naturally wouldn't be prone to blind trust or hasty conclusions. She turned her gaze upon me and spoke slowly. If they all claim to have witnessed it, then their testimony stands. You say it wasn't you, do you have proof? This was precisely the moment I'd been waiting for. Of course there is. I turned to Su Ying and asked softly, you said I pushed you. May I ask which hand I used to push you? I remained calm and composed, showing no sign of panic, which clearly unsettled Su Ying, but she still instinctively replied, your right hand. I chuckled lightly, revealing the hand I had been hiding in my sleeve to the crowd, then raised an eyebrow at Su Ying. Lady Huai, do explain. If I pushed you with a hand like this, why isn't there even a handprint on your clothes? At that moment, my originally fair and smooth palm was covered in blisters from burns, swollen beyond recognition. A layer of yellowish-brown medicinal powder was applied on top, with pus occasionally oozing out, yet with just the slightest touch. The sleeve bore a clearly visible bloody handprint mixed with that yellowish-brown powder. These noble ladies had never witnessed such a scene before. Some immediately retched while others gasped in shock. I slowly withdrew my hand and concealed it within my sleeve, then turned to explain to the Empress. I accidentally burned myself a couple of days ago, and the physician said burns shouldn't be bandaged. I was just afraid my unsightly appearance might offend noble guests, which is why I've been hiding it. With that, she turned to Su Ying, mimicking her mannerisms and feigning grievance as she said, and I don't know why the Princess of Huai would slander me like this. Su Ying hadn't anticipated this turn of events and seemed genuinely flustered, stammering, no. Sister used her left hand. I must have remembered wrong. Oh, her left hand. I raised an eyebrow and extended my left hand, which was in exactly the same condition as my right, then retorted. You're not going to say next that I pushed you without using my hands, are you? All the noble ladies present came from prestigious aristocratic families. The dirty tricks within deep courtyards and grand mansions were something they'd long grown accustomed to. How much more so for the Empress who resided deep within the imperial harem? There was hardly any need for me to explain. Everyone had already figured it out. The Empress had always disliked these scheming games. With just a brief order to let the imperial clan court investigate, She hastily concluded this farce and dismissed the banquet. By the time they left the palace, Xiao Shun from the men's seating area had already heard about the incident, his entire face scrunched up in displeasure, yet his words remained as unrestrained as ever. That ghostly-looking hag, has her brain rotted, or did she soak in an ink vat? How utterly malicious, if you ask me. Someone ought to stuff her back into her mother's womb for a proper remake. He's so protective of me, and though I'm deeply moved, I still resist the urge to ask, who taught you all these crude words? He blurted out, young Master Minyang who, of course, what about it? Ah, the famously notorious playboy of the capital, known for mingling with the common folk. No wonder. Xiao Shun remained completely unaware of whether his words might be inappropriate, still chattering away incessantly. How did we run into such rotten luck the moment we entered the palace? This imperial court might be incompatible with your fate, let's not come here again in the future. As if it were that simple to just decide not to come. I knew he was saying these things to coax me. I also thought his puffed up, angry look was quite adorable at this moment. Just as I was about to tease him, the carriage suddenly came to a halt. The coachman whispered a reminder, Your Highnesses, it's Prince Huai. Xiao Shun clearly disliked Xiao Yun, waving his hand impatiently. Go away, pretend you didn't see me. He wanted to leave, but Xiao Yun wasn't about to give him the chance. Sixth brother, allow me to speak with Princess Yu for a moment. The moment these words were spoken, a vein visibly twitched on Xiao Shun's forehead. My consort, do you think you can speak to her just because you want to? Dream on. If I hadn't stopped him, he would have charged out and punched Xiao Yun. As for that wretched Xiao Yun, I truly have nothing to say to him. The memory of him forcing poisoned wine down my throat in my past life is still vivid before my eyes. I fear that if I were to see that disgusting face, I wouldn't be able to resist drawing my blade and killing him on the spot. So, from behind the carriage curtain, I said coldly, Prince Huai, if there's nothing important, it's better not to speak. I wouldn't want my husband to misunderstand. These words were both a rejection to Xiao Yun and a reassurance to Xiao Shun. Sure enough, as soon as I spoke, Xiao Shun's expression visibly softened. He even grinned foolishly, letting out a couple of heh chuckles, radiating pure, simple-minded charm. I spoke bluntly, but Xiao Yun didn't press the matter, merely letting out a light chuckle. Oh, it seems my sixth brother has truly married himself a fine bride. I smiled too, my words carrying a double meaning. You can't compare. The new bride is better. The case of Su Ying plotting against the imperial heir and framing me by using the heir, though handed over to the imperial clan court for investigation, could be treated as either serious or minor. Su Chengyun is the chief grand counselor and also an imperial envoy, currently outside the capital carrying out disaster relief on behalf of the emperor. If he succeeds in the relief efforts and Xiao Yun chooses not to pursue the matter further, this incident could be minimized. Not only I, but also Su Ying and the Qi family knew this truth. Thus, on the morning of the second day after Su Ying was taken to the imperial clan court, a fast horse galloped out of the city from the Su residence. But I knew Su Chengyun all too well. He was a greedy man. Back then, in order to climb higher, he did not hesitate to abandon the Qi family, with whom he had sworn to grow old together. After serving as an official for several years, the bribes he secretly received were too numerous to count. This time, carrying so much disaster relief silver, how could he remain indifferent and not be tempted at all? Sure enough, before the Qis and Su Ying's plea for help could be sent out, the emperor received a blood-written letter from Nanyu County. The letter stated that some commoners had discovered that the embankment, which should have been built with stone slabs and lime, had turned into quicksand. The common people went to the county office to beat the drum demanding a thorough investigation, but Su Chengyun suppressed them as rioters. After the flood, although plagues were rampant, Su Chengyun not only refused to aid the people but instead sent those initially infected who still had a glimmer of hope into the plague village and set it ablaze, amid the raging fire. The cries of the people shook heaven and earth, and all who perished were citizens of Daliang. The records in the book, case after case, are too numerous to mention, each word dripping with blood and tears. The informant who sent the letter even claimed that there were many like him, people who carried blood-written petitions and traveled thousands of miles to the capital, but they were all captured by Su Chengyun and executed without exception, and after delivering his blood-written petition, that man too died at the palace gates. Admittedly, the contents of that letter contained elements of exaggeration, but the emperor was still furious and ordered the Dali Temple to conduct a thorough investigation. The Dali Temple acted swiftly in handling the case. Before Su Chengyun could return to the capital from his disaster relief mission, all the evidence of his embezzlement and disregard for human lives was laid out on the emperor's desk, in just 3 days. The truth about Su Ying's plot to harm the imperial heir and frame me using her unborn child was completely uncovered. It even brought to light that she had secretly pledged herself to a scholar from the Su household, resulting in an illicit pregnancy. On my wedding day, she attempted to seduce Xiao Shun using secret drugs and aphrodisiac incense. By the time Tsuaping brought back these rumors, Xiao Shun was standing before me, swearing to the heavens. Even if I were affected by that so-called incense, there's no way I'd be seduced by her. Of course I knew that. After all, no man would mistake a beauty for a female ghost, nor would any man kick a woman with half-exposed clothes, who willingly throws herself into his arms, straight into the lake. Watching Xiao Shun's earnest expression, afraid that I might misunderstand, as he kept explaining, for no apparent reason, I was in an exceptionally good mood. Perhaps because we've been spending more time together lately, I've increasingly realized how different he is from the rumors. It's probably because his mother was a beauty center's tribute from the western regions, making his status rather special. Thus, even though he was favored, he was never considered a potential crown prince candidate from childhood. Perhaps it was precisely because no one taught him the art of kingship and statecraft that shaped his current carefree and unrestrained nature. I don't find the slightest dislike for his easygoing temperament, especially when he was clearly angry, yet still frowned and asked with genuine concern, "With the Su family's downfall, will you be implicated?" I couldn't help but laugh, and felt more convinced that I might not have married the wrong man after all. "Don't worry," I reassured her gently. "I'll be fine. After all, I severed ties with the Su family on my wedding day, didn't I?" Su Ying probably never expected that the rumors she spread to slander me would actually save me a lot of trouble at this moment. I hadn't realized it either. I thought Su Ying simply wanted to take what was mine, but she was actually involved in an illicit affair. No wonder she was so desperate as to take such a risk on my wedding day. The gates of the imperial clan court were as forbidding as I remembered from my past life. In my past life, when I was framed by Su Ying for plotting against the imperial heir and tortured here until half dead, she came to see me. Back then, she dismissed all attendants, wearing the smile of a victor as she looked down on me with contempt in her words. "Su Jiang, what does being the principal wife matter? You're still locked up here like a dog," she said. "That's right, I framed you on purpose. But what can you do? You have no evidence." Now, it's my turn to look at her. I had originally planned to vent my anger just as she had mocked me in our previous life, but seeing her deathly pale face, I suddenly found it all rather meaningless. Yet when she saw me, it was as if she had encountered a sworn enemy, glaring at me with eyes wide in fury. "Su Jiang, it's all because of you. You're the one who ruined me like this. Why, everything you have should have been mine: your mother's position as the legal wife, your status as the legitimate daughter. Everything you possess, it all should have been mine from the start. I just want to take back what belongs to me." These were the same words she had said to me before my death in my previous life. But back then, she had the backing of Su Chengyun and was basking in Xiao Yun's favor, her face radiant with triumph. Nothing like the madwoman she appears to be now. I frowned and shook my head. TSK, pitiful. Perhaps she'd rather be mocked by me than hear those 2 words from my mouth. For she truly went mad in that moment, lunging at me as if to strangle me. Yet just then, the door behind us was suddenly kicked open. "How long do you intend to keep this up?" Hearing Xiao Yun's voice, Su Ying froze as if struck by lightning, standing rigidly in place. That Xiao Yun arrived with poisoned wine and a white silk cord came as no surprise to me. The dignity of the imperial family has always been inviolable. Su Ying's affair and her scheming to seduce a prince, successfully marrying into the royal family, was tantamount to splashing ink across the face of the imperial house. Xiao Yun has always been this way, stopping at nothing to achieve his goals, yet never keeping useless people around him. The Su family is about to fall, and Su Ying will certainly meet her end. This was the first time I'd seen him since my rebirth. His appearance hadn't changed at all compared to his previous life. It still makes people want to punch him after seeing it. When he saw me, a flicker of emotion flashed through his eyes, then he expressionlessly shifted his gaze to Su Ying. Though Su Ying was foolish, she wasn't so foolish as to not understand the situation when faced with poisoned wine and a white silk noose. Confronted with death, she finally knew fear and begged for mercy incessantly. I could still hear her piercing screams even after leaving the imperial clan court. By the time Xiao Yun caught up, Su Ying's curses hadn't ceased. Tsuaping rarely expressed sympathy, but now remarked, "She brought this upon herself. No sooner had these words been spoken than I heard Xiao Yun's voice. Wait, I didn't want to wait, but his strides were swift. In just a few steps, he overtook me and blocked my path, though impatient. Now wasn't the time to break ties with him. I could only force a faint smile in his direction. Does His Highness Prince Huai still have business with me? Xiao Yun remained silent, staring fixedly at me with an inscrutable expression in his eyes. After a long pause, he finally asked, Su Jiang, have we met somewhere before? His abrupt question caught me off guard. Your Highness, why do you ask such a thing? Xiao Yun's gaze still lingered on me. You just seem very familiar, that's all. I truly had no desire to engage in such casual conversation with him on the street, so I took a step back to create distance. With so many banquets in the capital, it's not unusual to have met once or twice. Also, for the sake of propriety, I ask Prince Huai to address me as Princess Yu or sister-in-law. I finished speaking without waiting for his reaction, taking Tsuaping with me as I boarded the carriage. Yet even at a distance, through the carriage window, I could still feel his gaze sharp as a blade. That look, I knew it all too well, in my past life, when he deceived me into carrying a forged imperial decree to the border. He had watched me leave the capital with that very same expression. The mere thought of my grandfather being executed as a disgraced official under that forged imperial decree makes my temples throb, and I can't help but silently calculate in my heart, now that Su Ying is dead, no matter how much Su Chengyun struggles, he can't turn the tide. With the Su family's downfall, the political winds at court will shift immediately. Those ministers who secretly supported Xiao Yun alongside the Su family will gradually quiet down. Even Xiao Yun would surely become much quieter. He might want to lie low and bide his time, but how could I let him have his way? If he won't act, then we'll just have to force him to. At this thought, I gently massaged my temples and instructed Tsuaping, send word to that person, let's move the plan forward. When autumn arrived, the general stationed at Lanyu Pass noticed the Qiong kingdom quietly gathering troops at the border. After several skirmishes, they discovered letters bearing the seal of Prince Huai, Xiao Yun, in the enemy commander's camp. The news caused an uproar in the capital as soon as it arrived. Naturally, the letter was a forgery, because the seal on that letter was traced by me, following the pattern I remembered from my past life, though the letter was fake. The secret correspondence between Xiao Yun and the eldest prince of the Qiong kingdom over these past few years was indeed real. The envoy sent to the Qiong kingdom had barely stated his purpose when the Qiong crown prince voluntarily handed over all the correspondence. After all, compared to collaborating with a prince of the Liang dynasty for uncertain gains, they would much rather take advantage of the Liang's internal strife, stir up the muddy waters, and reap the benefits. By the time the evidence reached the capital, the emperor had fainted from rage before he could even pass judgment. At this moment, Xiao Yun took advantage of the chaos to escape. It was the Mid-Autumn festival, yet the emperor lay unconscious, and the Prince of Huai had fled with no trace of his whereabouts. The entire capital was gripped with fear and unease. Only Xiao Shun, a man of simple thoughts, insisted on dragging me to visit the annual Mid-Autumn night market. I couldn't refuse. So I had no choice but to accompany him. While the imperial court was embroiled in bloody storms, the common people remained largely unaffected. The night market was bustling with activity, the crowd so dense you couldn't see the path ahead. The crowd was overwhelming. I had only grabbed Xiao Shun's sleeve because I was afraid we'd get separated, but unexpectedly, the next moment, my hand was enveloped by his broad, warm palm. He pointed to a candied hawthorn stall not far away and asked me, "That looks good, let's go buy a stick." Yet the tone of his voice was nothing like his usual self. Standing so close, I could even feel that the hand holding mine was stiff from the wrist all the way up the arm. I find it rather amusing, though we've been married for so long, for some unknown reason, he's never sought to consummate our union. Yet as a prince, he should have had several concubines by the time he came of age. Instead, he still behaves like a greenhorn holding a woman's hand for the first time. Thinking this, I couldn't help but chuckle softly and nodded, saying, "All right, if you like them, let's buy a few more skewers." I don't know which nerve of his this sentence struck. His body stiffened slightly before he abruptly let go of my hand. "Fine, wait here, I'll go buy them." Then with reddened ears, walking stiffly like a marionette, he headed toward the candied hawthorn vendor. I wanted to warn him, but before I could shout, a figure flashed past, blocking my view. The next instant, someone suddenly covered my mouth and nose while delivering a heavy blow to my neck. Before I could react, everything went black as I completely lost consciousness. When I came to, my hands and feet were bound, a black cloth covered my eyes. Though I couldn't see, I could hear another person's breathing besides my own. I hardly needed to guess who it was. Prince Huai's hospitality is truly remarkable. Having his identity guessed, Xiao Yun made no further attempt to conceal it. He removed the black cloth from my eyes and flashed me a smirk. I never expected Princess Yu to be so astute. I underestimated you. I smiled back at him. I never expected Prince Huai to resort to such underhanded methods. I underestimated you too. I didn't show any fear, which seemed to surprise him. Aren't you the least bit curious, Princess Yu, why I sought you out? I raised an eyebrow and countered. Isn't it obvious, Prince Huai? You want to use me as leverage against Xiao Shun to force him to help you seize the throne. Xiao Yun appeared amused by my question. He clutched his stomach, laughing for a long while, then suddenly asked me, you know what, the other day, I had a dream. My eyelid twitched uncontrollably. As if by intuition, I suddenly guessed what he was about to say next. Sure enough, the next moment I heard him say, in that dream of mine. The fourth brother died in a relief riot. The fifth brother was stripped of his power for privately mobilizing troops, and you married me, becoming my principal consort. My heart skipped 2 beats. It took me a while to hear my own slightly hoarse voice. It was just a dream. Could it be that His Highness the Prince of Huai actually took it seriously? He didn't answer, but slowly curled his lips and raised an eyebrow to ask me, oh, was it really just a dream? Xiao Yun clearly didn't believe it was just an ordinary dream. He stood up and slowly paced around me in 2 full circles. At first, I also thought it was just a dream, but it felt too real, so real that I couldn't help but question what's reality and what's a dream. As he spoke, he suddenly crouched down and stared at me intently. Did you know, I was supposed to ascend to that supreme imperial throne, but now I can only hide and flee. Reduced to this state, I suspected my fourth brother. And my fifth brother too, but after much deliberation, I realized I'd overlooked you, the one whose path in my dreams was completely different from reality. My heart tightened slightly, yet I maintained my composure and asked, oh, what was I like in Prince Huai's dreams? You, suddenly, he curled his lips into a smile and gently caressed my cheek. In my dreams, you were my rightful consort, and we were deeply in love, eventually ascending to the throne together as emperor and empress. I raised an eyebrow at him without changing my expression. So, just because I married Prince Yu, you suspect that I was the one who brought you to this state? He suddenly curled his lips into a smile, his reply flawless. Just you, if I'm not mistaken. There's someone behind you, isn't there? Though he didn't answer directly, I knew he had guessed. He guessed it was me conspiring with others behind the scenes to disrupt his plans, but he wasn't yet certain whether I, like him, knew the trajectory of our past lives, so he was testing me, testing whether I have memories from my past life. I was initially a bit nervous, but now that I knew the reason he captured me, I actually felt relieved. I raised an eyebrow at him and smiled. Since you already know, you didn't bring me here just to tell me these mysterious stories, did you? Sure enough, his eyes narrowed slightly at the words. Oh, then the person behind you, is it fourth brother, or fifth brother? My smile didn't fade. Guess. Xiao Shun wasn't foolish. He grasped my intention in an instant. He scoffed and asked, trying to buy time, waiting for someone to rescue you. Seeing my silent admission, he actually burst out laughing. That simpleton Xiao Shun, who lacks any cunning, was lured away long ago. Did you really think you could count on him to save you? I smiled back at him. As you said, I have powerful backing, so why would you assume the person I'm waiting for is Xiao Shun, as if to confirm my words? The moment I finished speaking, the clashing of weapons rang out from outside the house. Immediately after, Xiao Ju's voice followed. Third brother, Mother Empress said that as long as you confess everything, she will surely plead for mercy on your behalf to Father Emperor. By the time Xiao Ju and his men burst in, Xiao Yun's sword was already pressed against my neck. The two of them finally tore off the facade of their false brotherly affection. Facing each other coldly, Xiao Yun sneered. So it was you. Since when have you and the Yu princess been so close, fourth brother? He naturally had no idea. In my previous life, before my grandfather was beheaded, he once lamented to me, Prince Xiao Yun of Huai is narrow-minded and ruthless in his pursuit of the throne. He will surely not spare Prince Qi, for though talented, his methods are sinister, hardly the makings of a wise ruler. Alas, Prince Qi has no desire to contend for the throne. Had Prince Yong still lived, he would have been the most fitting candidate for that position. Only then did it dawn on me, revealing the full extent of Xiao Yun's ambition. Thus, on the very first day of my rebirth, I secretly infiltrated Prince Yong's residence and formed an alliance with Prince Xiao Ju of Yong. He entered the palace to offer counsel, facilitating the marriage between me and Xiao Shun. I strategized for him, severing Xiao Yun's support from the Su family, having lived through my previous life. I naturally knew that without maternal clan backing, Xiao Yun had only managed to gain a foothold in court by relying on the Su family, but Su Chengyun was inherently greedy, a veritable quagmire, while Xiao Yun sought to rise to prominence through Su Chengyun. The latter could just as easily drag him into the mire. In this life, I was already on guard and had my grandfather assign me his capable disciple, Cuiping. Cuiping was meticulous in thought and formidable in martial arts. Xiao Yun thought he had abducted me from the marketplace without anyone noticing. In reality, Cuiping had spotted him long ago. She even secretly followed him, discovered his hideout, and sent word to Xiao Ju. That Xiao Ju would come to capture Xiao Yun didn't surprise me in the least. Xiao Yun, however, seemed unable to accept it for a moment, his voice dark with accusation. Why does it have to be you? Since childhood, father has always favored you. Doted on you. Why do you get to have all the advantages? He even leaned close to my ear and asked through gritted teeth. Why must you choose him too? This was the first time in both my lifetimes that I had ever seen Xiao Yun so utterly unhinged. His voice grew increasingly agitated, his hands trembling slightly, so much so that with just a bit more force, he could have slit my throat, yet I felt not a trace of fear. Instead, I raised an eyebrow and asked him, if you had that dream, then you should already know why, shouldn't you? Xiao Shun froze at these words, stunned. What did you say? You mean, that dream of mine was? I slowly curled my lips. Exactly, everything in your dream truly happened. In the previous life, Prince Yong, Xiao Ju, died suddenly. After Prince Yong's death, the only person Xiao Yun still feared was Prince Qi, who held command over 100,000 troops at the western Rong border alongside my grandfather. That same autumn when Su Ying framed me, the Qiong kingdom simultaneously launched an attack at Lanyu Pass. When news of my grandfather's critical illness reached the capital, I grew restless and begged Xiao Yun to let me visit my family at the western Rong border. To my surprise, he readily agreed. He even thoughtfully arranged for me to travel with the imperial envoy who was delivering the edict to dispatch reinforcements to Lanyu Pass. At that time, I never could have imagined that the imperial edict and that envoy were traps Xiao Yun had prepared for me. It wasn't until my grandfather and the Qiong troops retreated, and the emperor's letter of condemnation arrived, that I suddenly realized I had been used. My grandfather would never suspect me. And Prince Qi would never suspect my grandfather. Xiao Yun exploited precisely this point to eliminate the sole obstacle standing between him and the crown prince's position. Deploying troops without imperial decree is a capital crime punishable by extermination of 9 generations. Though Prince Qi was stripped of his military power, he was spared from execution. But as the maternal grandfather and chief commander, there was no possibility of escape for him. By that time, the false imperial envoy who had forged the decree had already hanged himself at home, leaving behind only a suicide note accusing me. I had no defense to offer, no avenue to plead my innocence. I could only watch helplessly as my maternal grandfather's family was dragged out of the Meridian Gate to be executed, and I was forced by Xiao Yun to drink a cup of poisoned wine, ending my life. Whether it was a dream or rebirth, Xiao Yun must have known about these events. Almost instantly, he reacted, gnashing his teeth as he demanded, so it was you who sought out fourth brother and conspired to have Su Chengyun handle the disaster relief, seizing the chance to bring down the Su family, and it was also you who schemed to expose my correspondence with the Qiong kingdom's prince, driving me to this desperate state. People tend to get distracted when emotionally agitated. I had originally planned to take advantage of his momentary distraction to find an opportunity to escape. So I didn't deny it. Exactly. Sure enough, the next moment his voice suddenly faltered. I should have realized it sooner. I should have guessed it was you, third imperial brother. Xiao Ju probably wanted to persuade him to calm down first, but the moment he spoke, it seemed to provoke Xiao Yun instead. With a sudden forceful movement, the sword's edge pressed against my throat, drawing a thin line of blood. Xiao Ju froze instantly, not daring to move. As for Xiao Yun, whether provoked by my words or not, he actually began to speak incoherently. It should have been you who died, the fourth brother, the fifth brother, all of you. I was the crown prince, I was the emperor. With every word he uttered, the sword in his hand trembled. If that's the case, let's die together then. Perhaps death will give us a fresh start. He spoke while applying force, about to draw the sword across my neck. At the critical moment, an arrow shot through the air from outside the house, striking his arm with pinpoint accuracy. In pain, He instantly lost his strength. Seizing the opportunity, I pushed back hard with a reverse motion, sending him straight into Xiao Ju's encirclement. Only then did my tense nerves gradually relax as I turned to look in the direction from which the arrow had come, and what I saw was Xiao Shun, his expression ferocious and bloodthirsty. His eyes crimson as he drew his bow directly at Xiao Yun's heart. Xiao Shun's second arrow struck Xiao Yun in the chest, nearly taking his life. Fortunately, he didn't die and was forcibly saved, only to be imprisoned in the Dali temple, awaiting the emperor's awakening to decide his fate. The situation was settled, and Xiao Ju gradually became a frequent visitor to Prince Yu's residence. Everything seemed to have calmed down, except for Xiao Shun, since the day he saved me, for an entire month. He hadn't paid me any attention, no matter if I asked questions, pretended to be pitiful, or tried various ways to amuse him. He never uttered a single word to me. He remained expressionless, not even sparing me a glance. I encountered this situation for the first time and was momentarily at a loss for what to do. It was Xiao Ju who couldn't stand it any longer and said, whether in persuasion or anger, since sixth brother doesn't like sixth sister-in-law, why don't I take the initiative and ask mother to grant you a divorce? Only then did his expression finally change, and he quietly sneaked into my room in the dead of night. He entered the room without a word, lurking in the corner like a ghost, staring at me with wide eyes. I was in a deep sleep when I suddenly felt a chilling sensation on my back. The moment I opened my eyes, I was nearly scared to death. Even so, he stared at me expressionlessly without saying a word. Having lived 2 lifetimes, this was the first time I felt utterly helpless in such a situation. Unable to hold back, I sighed and asked, "What exactly are you angry about?" He finally spoke, "You clearly like fourth brother, so why did you still marry me?" I was momentarily stunned, equally puzzled. Since when have I fancied Prince Yong? If you don't like him, why did you help him? Why did Suaping deliver the message to him first instead of me? Do you realize that if I had arrived just a moment later, I might never have seen you again? Though the words were accusatory, coming from him they carried a hint of pitiful grievance. Somehow, the expression he wore that day when drawing his bow suddenly flashed through my mind. At that moment, he had probably truly intended to kill Xiao Yun. With eyes bloodshot crimson, he looked like a demon emerging from hell, perfectly matching the rumors of his bloodthirsty brutality. But the thought that his appearance was simply because, as he said, he feared never seeing me again, made my chest soften involuntarily, and even my tone gentled when I spoke. If I fancied him, why would I marry you? This question seemed to stump him completely. He froze for a moment, the question circling back to its origin. Right, you even forgot about promising to marry me when we were kids, so why did you still marry me? Right, the words tumbled out before I realized my mistake. And I couldn't help but frown slightly. When did I say that as a child? Before I could finish speaking, some images suddenly flashed through my mind. I paused slightly, faintly recalling that I might have indeed said it. It was during the Lunar New Year's Eve when I was 8 years old, the year after my mother passed away. That year, after being driven out of the main courtyard by the Qi family and Su Ying, I moved into the woodshed. For a time after that, they seemed to have forgotten my existence. Even on New Year's Eve, no one came to call me for the reunion dinner. Perhaps their joyful scene was too painful to watch, so I couldn't bear it. I quietly slipped out of the mansion with 2 copper coins in my pocket. That night, the night market in the capital was exceptionally lively. The crowd was so dense that I didn't even notice when my money pouch was stolen. It wasn't until I stood before the candied hawthorn vendor and realized my last 2 copper coins were gone that I came to my senses. The crimson candied hawthorns looked truly beautiful. When my mother was alive, she would often buy a few skewers. She would always coax me to eat them. But I never liked the sour taste of hawthorns under their sugary coating. Truth be told, I didn't feel much when they weren't available. After all, I didn't really want to eat them anyway. But just as I was about to apologize to the vendor, a young man's voice came from beside me. "I've seen you standing here for a long time. Do you like it?" When I looked up, I saw a young man in splendid robes beside me. The youth had striking eyes, pools of ink with a hint of blue, not quite resembling the typical appearance of people from Daliang. Feeling slightly wary, I stared at him blankly without speaking. When I didn't answer, he thought I hadn't heard and asked again, "Do you like it?" "I can give you one." I shook my head. "My mother liked it." He asked again, "Where is your mother?" "My mother is dead." After I said these words, the young man clearly froze. He seemed to think he had touched a nerve, and after a long pause, he awkwardly said, "I'm sorry." At that moment, perhaps because his expression was too sincere, I unconsciously let my guard down and shook my head at him. It's fine." Still feeling apologetic, the boy spoke in an unusually bold tone. "Then tell me. What do you want? As long as I can afford it, I'll buy you anything." After just a brief moment of thought, young me said, "Then can you give me a husband?" At that time, I didn't really understand what a husband was, but still, under his slightly surprised gaze, I earnestly explained, "My mother says the rarest thing in this world is a good husband. I want a good husband, can you give me one?" He seemed somewhat troubled, scratching his head as he replied, "That probably wouldn't work." But seeing my dejected expression, he quickly changed his tune. "But when you grow up, you can marry me. I should make a good husband." Perhaps it was the sincerity in his tone, or perhaps the young man's smile was simply too intoxicating. I agreed almost without thinking. That night, after the young man escorted me to the back gate of the Sioux residence, as we parted, he seemed to say something about remembering his words, but at that time, Lady Chi was waiting at the back door. And when she saw me, she started cursing loudly. Her voice was so loud that I couldn't make out what the youth was saying at all. Life went on, and I didn't dwell on that chance childhood encounter or the conversation that couldn't even be considered a promise. As I grew older, I even forgot about the youth I met that night. But I never expected that he would still remember all this time. The aggrieved expression on Xiao Shun's face gradually overlapped with the boy from my memories. I couldn't hold back, my heart grew even softer, and my nose tingled with unshed tears, not wanting him to notice anything amiss, and without waiting for his reaction, I shifted further into the bed and patted the empty space beside me. "Come up first," I said. He must have been somewhat moved, but after taking 2 steps forward, he stopped again, his expression hesitant. I didn't urge him either, simply lying down directly. After a long while, I finally felt the bed beside me sink slightly. Sensing the warmth beside me and his deliberately maintained distance, his slightly stiff body made my heart grow increasingly tender. I couldn't hold back anymore, turned around and gently kissed his forehead before nestling into his embrace. "I'm sorry," my voice was barely a whisper, "for having forgotten him." I also didn't consider his feelings. He didn't respond for a long while. Just when I thought he hadn't heard, he suddenly turned and held me tightly, followed by his slightly domineering mutter, "Let it pass this time, but don't let it happen again. After all, you're marrying me, you can only be mine." I nestled deeper into his embrace, slowly curling my lips into a smile as I nodded in agreement. "Okay." The end.